Should I put my money into an annuity when I get to retirement or when I'm close to retirement? That's what we're going to talk about today. We get this question a lot, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of annuity, the different types of annuities, and to see if it makes sense for you or not. An annuity doesn't make sense for everyone. There's no perfect investment out there, and so our job is to educate you so you can make the most educated and informed decision as you're looking to plan your retirement.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
I always say there is no perfect investment when it comes to retirement planning. I mean, think about it. Every investment has its pros and cons, and if someone is trying to push an investment on you that, hey, it's all got all these shiny objects and it's the best thing ever, you can get a 40% return every year, my first advice would be just to run away, because there's nothing perfect. Everything has its pros and cons. Could something grow more than something else? Absolutely. But as you take more risk, there's more return, right? And so do you really want to take that level of risk to get that level of return? Now, there's ways to invest in an optimal way to seek a higher return with less risk, but it's never going to be lopsided. It's never going to be extreme return with no risk is ultimately the idea. And so you have to look at your specific situation and see, what are your goals? We have some clients that say, hey, a 5% is a reasonable rate of return throughout my retirement. And well, if that's your goal, you could probably be a lot more conservative and still get that return with a lot less risk. Now, if you say, I got to get double digits return every year in retirement, I want to build the biggest barns, well, maybe you put everything in the stock market and just hope for high returns over time. You're going to see a lot of ups and downs, but you may accomplish your goal of higher return if that's ultimately your goal. So it's for you to decide which way you're going. A lot of clients that we work with like a balance of both. They like the opportunity to grow, they like the opportunity to protect, and so they mix those within a plan. Anything they need in the short term, they go to the protect. Anything they need in the long term, they go to the growth. And so you can set your plan up in many different ways there. And so today we're going to talk about how an annuity could fit into that plan, or should it fit in the plan at all? And so we're going to talk about the different types of annuities and how we can look at that there. So first things first, there's over 100 different types of annuities, probably even more than that, and they're all structured in different ways. And so first thing to understand with an annuity is that it's mostly through an insurance company. So basically you're signing a contract with an insurance company, and then they're going to give you some sort of contractual agreements as far as maybe some guarantees or maybe some specific protections built in. And so we're going to talk through all of that type of stuff that you may see out there on the marketplace, and just to help you be aware of insurance salespeople versus people who only do investment management. And so this is what's crazy about annuities is there's some good annuities out there. I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you. There's also some really bad annuities. And so what happens in our industry is there's two types of advisors. There's really three, but I'm going to talk about two. The first type of advisor is an insurance-only salesperson. They only get compensated to sell annuities. You may see these guys at the state dinners across town. Maybe they're talking about products in those presentations. Maybe they have a billboard up there that says "Safe Money Guarantee," and they're all bought into that insurance only. And then you have what's called investment only, where they can't offer insurance. They're not insurance licensed. They only offer securities, which is typically stocks and bonds. Now, with these people, they typically talk bad about annuities because maybe they don't get compensated for it. Whereas these people talk bad about the stock market or bond market because they don't get compensated for that. And so that's where you got to make sure you work with someone who understands both sides and is completely independent and is a true fiduciary, where they could offer both. And so if you wanted an insurance product, they could help you get that, but they're also there to educate you on the advantages of this side as well. But if you have one person just siloed in either place, that's where we're going to lead the problems. There's a big name in our industry. I'm not going to mention names and name drop so I don't get in trouble. But there's a big company in our industry who hates annuities. And you've probably heard them say how much they hate annuities and how bad they are and you should never own it. And part of it's true. And actually the annuity they specifically talk about, we're going to talk about today. And I would actually agree with them that that is a terrible type of annuity in my opinion. Now, does that make all annuities bad though if one is bad? Maybe, maybe not, depending on what your objectives are. And that's what we're going to to talk about here. So again, understand the differences between the people who you're talking to, and just making sure you work with someone who's in the middle, who is really going to sit on the same side of the table to help you get and find what you're looking for. And so something we do with our clients is we don't push any investments, we don't push any annuities or products on anyone. Our job is to educate them of the different ideas and options out there, and it's our goal to bring them recommendations based on what their goals and what they're telling us, what they want, and then we're going to show them the best in the marketplace that we can find, and it's their job to tell us, yeah, that's great, or hey, I don't like that, let's look at something else. And so you really want to find someone who's sitting on the same side of the table that has all the options at their fingertips is what we would really advise you on. So let's get into it here, and let's talk about the three different types of annuities. I've categorized them in three different ways. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each of those. But before we do that, I just want to really express too, like, who is an annuity typically right for? Well, it's not anyone who's my age is who should be getting an annuity, right? For people my age who are still going to be working for many, many years and have this YouTube and podcast for many, many years in the future so that all of you can listen to some great content and get great education. Well, for me, I may not need an annuity. And I can tell you that I do not have any annuities. But for family members of mine, for people who are in or near retirement, who are looking for protection, an annuity can make a lot more sense for them than it could for me. And so that's the idea that you want to think about is, where do you sit? If you're 10 plus years from retirement, annuity may not be as attractive for you because you have time to really buy yourself in the market and to seek that higher return that we were talking about earlier. So just keep in mind where you're at, but also what your risk tolerance is. If you're ultra aggressive, annuity, you probably don't want to look into annuity. If you're very, very conservative and you don't like losing money and you just want that slow and steady and consistent over time, well, an annuity can make sense for someone like you. And so let's talk about the three types here. So the first type is what we call a variable annuity. So this is what I would call a bad annuity. So that's the one that firm talks about. They're mostly referencing a variable annuity. And the reason why, they're typically really high in fee. I mean, you're going to see variable annuities anywhere from 1 to 3. I've even seen some upwards of 4%. And that's because there's all these features and riders and all this stuff attached to them, but you may not need those. There's sub-account fees, there's rider fees, there's the M&E fees. There's just so much involved there. And what we're seeing with variable annuities is, typically you're going to tie your money up for a period of time, which could be a pretty long time. And then also there's no market protection. So if your goal is to protect, that's where we typically think of annuities. Well, that may not be the case. And also keep your mind open with this conversation today, because when people think of annuities, they typically think of like one specific thing, but they don't understand that annuities mean different things. Like, most people think of an annuity, they think of like a pension, right? An annuity is an income stream for life. Well, that's one of these types, but just understand, you understand there's more than that, and there's different ways to plan for that. But anyway, so that's the idea with the variable annuity is, again, high fee, long tie-up, no market protection. We wouldn't recommend that for most people, for the most part. And, they could have been attractive back in the day when the rates were a little better and things like that. But if you really want a high-risk investment or more of a, investment, just go to the stock market. You're going to get a very similar type, investment as a variable annuity without the additional costs is really what that comes down to for most people. So that's the case there. And then the next type of annuity that I want to discuss is what's called an income annuity. Now, income annuities, think of that pension. And with these income annuities, typically what I tell you is they're typically more costly. So understand, whenever you do an insurance product or an investment, like that, there's going to be some hidden costs or added in costs that you need to be aware of. Maybe not anything to scare you away, but just understand, in order to get these guarantees, the insurance company's not doing it for free. Now, the good thing about using an insurance company is they can get institutional rates. So, for example, if you go to the bank, they may be able to give you 5% because you don't have as much money. But if you have the amount of money that an insurance company has and they go to the bank, they may be able to get a 6% return. And then that's how they're able to help you get the same return or better than the bank, but also give you some other benefits and features. And then they get the upside because they've got the extra revenue to make it work. So just ideas like that of why an insurance company could make sense for someone to leverage that, so they can have the more fruitful take. Because obviously an insurance company is going to get their money. They've got the biggest buildings around, and so they're very good and very smart about how they're investing their money to ensure that they can one, pay out the consumer, but also get them the best rates and making sure that product is as competitive as possible to make it attractive for people to really want to do that. So that's how that works. So the other thing with an income annuities, like I said, the reason why it's more costly is, like, sometimes, in order to get a guaranteed income for life, which is what most of these products are offering, Well, there's going to have to be some guarantee to that because the insurance company doesn't want to, lose out on that if you live to 150 years old, right? And so, you may not get as much growth. Maybe the trade-off, how is that cost? That cost may not just be a number amount. You could have a no-fee annuity, but maybe the cost is instead of getting a 5% return, you would get a 3% return. Or maybe there's not going to be much growth there at all, but you can still have an income stream for life. So those are the things just to be aware of when you're looking at an annuity. The other thing is that with some income annuities, not all of them, most annuities now are going to have a death benefit. So if you pass away, there's still going to be something left. But there is types of income annuities, for example, like a SPIA, S-P-I-A, and that is going to basically not have a payout to a beneficiary in some of those types of annuities, meaning that you put your money in, if you pass away tomorrow, nothing's going to pay out to that beneficiary. You can do like 10-year certain, so you can make sure it pays out for at least 10 years to a beneficiary. There's things like that you can put in place, but there's going to be a negative. Now, the pros of it, you maybe get a higher upfront income payment and more income ongoing, but you're taking on a little more risk there, and so you've got to decide, is that what you're looking for or not? So think of that more of like a pension. A lot of pensions do not pay out if your spouse passed away. It's a reason why a lot of people take the lump sum pension option. If you're looking for more information on pensions, go to our YouTube channel. I've got, I think, 2 of our top performing videos there actually we're talking about pensions and tax planning with pensions and what your options are there. So I'd encourage you to look at that if that's the boat that you're in there. So that's the case there. The other thing with income annuities that I would be aware of is, you're basically tying up your money for life, basically, with one insurance company. And, not to say that's bad. Insurance companies can be great, over time, but you don't really have a ton of flexibility. You can get out of the contract, after that surrender period's up, but where are you going to go with that money? And is it going to be more attractive than, what that vehicle could have been if you, got something better? So there's just not really a bunch of flexibility. So if you want that income payment for life, well, that means you got to commit to it for life. Versus if you back out early, well, then you don't get the income for life, and maybe you're paying a lot up front. So you just have to think through those opportunities. And then the other reason that you need to be aware of income annuities is the fact that it's a fixed amount coming in every month or every year ongoing. So it makes tax planning a little more difficult because it's kind of like that pension idea, right? You always are pushing your income higher and you don't have a way to back it down. And so a lot of annuities, they don't have the ability to do Roth conversions. Some do, but you want to make sure you have the type of planning capability of that. And that's why a lot of people take the lump sum pension option like we are just talking about, is so they can have more ability to decide how much they want to take out each year so they can really be more tax efficient. And so those are things to think about. But again, what's the pro of an income annuity? Well, guaranteed income for life sounds really good. Never having to worry about having income and just having that consistent payout may make you a little happier, may make you feel a little comfortable. The cost of it may not outweigh the value that delivers to you emotionally. And so those are the things that you would look at in those cases. We don't use income annuities very often at all, unless a client just really, really would like that type of benefit moving forward. So there's definitely value in it. It's just a matter of you got to live at least 20 years for most of these annuities to really even see any growth or any benefit from what you put in. And so you got to understand, hey, do you really want that amount of trade-off for not much growth is the idea. The last type of annuity that I want to talk about here is the accumulation type of annuity. And this is an annuity that's more stripped down. It's going to be more basic, bare bones, and it's going to have, think of it as either like a fixed component or an index component. So like a fixed component means that it's like a CD. You put your money in, you're going to get a guaranteed payout. There's not going to be any fees associated with that, and that's what you're going to get, each year ongoing. The other type is what's called an indexed option. And with the index option, it's a way you can still participate in the market, but not lose any money. Now, that sounds good. It probably sounds too good to be true, and it's because it's not fully true. There's typically a cap of how much you can make in the market. So let's say that the market does 20%. Let's say your cap is 12%. Well, you only get 12%. You don't get any of the upside. But if the market does 6% and you have a 12% cap, well, you get 6% of that. If it goes down negative 20, well, you get 0. You don't lose any money in this type of annuity. And so that's how that works. That type of annuity is specifically called a fixed index annuity. Some people like that growth potential while just making sure they don't lose anything. And a lot of times with these types of annuities, there's no fees if you don't add any riders or add any benefits. And so that's what we would typically do with this type of vehicle, if our client wanted protection, they were okay with moderate growth rates, and they just really wanted to find ways to lower their fees or ensure that they had some income up front that was going to be protected. That's where these types of annuities can come into play. Again, think of like a CD or a money market or something like that. Now, the negative of these types of annuities is you would have to tie up your money. It is going to cause you not to have full liquidity of your money. But most of these contracts have an ability to take out 10% per year. And that's where you could strip it down for income if that's a goal of yours. And so that's how that works. But you do have to understand that this investment is, not going to provide as much growth as equities or bonds. Well, actually, in my opinion, bonds and this are almost similar. And we look at it as a way of, if a client doesn't necessarily want to invest in bonds, well, this could be a good alternative because you may get the same return as bonds or maybe even a little more. But the difference is you don't have to worry about losing money. Whereas in 2022, for example, bonds were down 15%. Well, these types of annuities were not down at all. And so you can have that peace of mind and that little more consistency if that's a goal of yours. Plus, fees, right? If someone invests in bonds with an advisor, they're going to have to pay a management fee. If they put that money in an annuity, there is no management fee. The advisor would get paid a commission, but most advisors, well, I hope so, do not charge an additional fee on top of that. They get their money. They're not going to double charge you is really the idea. And so those are some of the advantages of it. But again, there's just some things to look out for. Again, with this type of annuity, you are going to have to tie up your money for a period of time. Typically for most of these types of annuities, either 5 to 10 years. And, you can ladder those, or you can find a shorter option if that's more attractive to you, or if you have the time, then maybe it makes sense to lock in some of the rates right now we're seeing that are a bit higher, that are pretty reasonable for most people there. So again, there's definitely pros and cons to all these different options. One thing I always want to make sure people are clear is that if you do annuity, do not put all your money into an annuity. We see people out there, the insurance salespeople, that will put like 70, 80, 90% of their clients' money in annuities. And I would tell you that's probably not the right decision because you're basically tying up all your money, and anything can happen anytime, and we want diversification, not all of our eggs in one basket is my advice there. And so those would be my tips for you there as you're looking for an annuity. If you are looking for guidance on like, hey, I like the idea of this annuity, I want to get further guidance, feel free to schedule a time with us. We'll walk you through, but also just making sure you're looking at the right idea. Or maybe you're getting pitched an annuity from someone. Schedule a time with us. We'll do a review with you just to ensure you're not, committing to something that you don't want to do, or maybe it's the best thing in the world and you should do it. And so we'll make sure we educate you there. But we just see too many times where we see consumers that look to get an annuity and then they get it and it just doesn't work within their plan. And so something we always preach is get a plan, not a portfolio. A portfolio is where you just have an annuity, some stocks, some bonds, but nothing works together. An annuity can make sense with the right plan, but it also may not make sense for the right plan. And so you got to understand, how is this all going to play together? And then that specific type of annuity, how would that fit the mold there? And so to be transparent again, with our clients, some have annuities, some don't. We show different options and we let them decide of what's going to fit best for them, and we show them the pros and cons of each. So anyway, so that's how we would explain the different types of annuities there. Hopefully that helps educate you a little better, helps you make an educated and informed decision of what you should be doing with your retirement. And again, there is no perfect investment. All investments have their pros and cons, and it's important to have a diversified plan that is looking at all areas to ensure you get what you need throughout retirement. So there's another episode for you of Joe Knows Retirement. We'll see you on the next one. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Since we do not know your specific situation, none of this information can serve as tax, legal, insurance, or financial advice and may be outdated or inaccurate. The information comes from sources believed to be reliable but cannot be guaranteed. This content is prepared for educational purposes only. If you need advice, please contact a qualified CPA, attorney, insurance agent, financial advisor, or the appropriate professional for the subject you would like help with. Peak Retirement Planning, Inc. is an Ohio-based registered investment advisor and able to offer advisory services in Ohio and in other states where registered or exempt from registration.